You know what? People need to give Brad Holmes some credit because he knew Frank Ragnow was going to retire and he prepared. So, like I said, it's kind of hard giving an opinion when you don't have all the information on the inside. But what we did know as Lion fans is that Frank Ragnow always was talking about retirement. He's playing. He had a torn pec last year. He was playing through, I think it was. So we know he was already talking about retirement. So we was kind of, me personally, I knew it's always a reason why. And if I have an obsession, it's always about why. Especially with sports, never ask why for women. You ain't gonna do nothing but make you matter. But yeah, you be like, damn, they drafted Manu Giovanni, right? They drafted Corey Sorsdale. They drafted Christian Mahogany, who he came in last year and really entrenched himself as a starter after missing the majority of the year. 6th-round draft pick. You know what I'm saying? Like, he balled. Like, he was the highest graded Lion for a couple of them games. So you say, damn, they already had 3 really young good guards. They probably wasn't keeping Kevin Seifert, especially after the way Mahogany played, right? So you was like, they're probably going to bring in a veteran, guard, right? They didn't. They drafted, what's the kid name? Miles Frazier from LSU. They moved up for Tate Ratledge. So, you're looking at it and you say, damn, they took 2 guards. We didn't really understand it. Then we started to dig. Oh, Tate Ratledge practiced as the center. He was being prepared to be the center of Georgia. Miles Frazier, I think his name, he played every offensive line position. So then it started to make sense. So it's like, okay. I was just thinking like, okay, they preparing for Frank Ragnow to retire in the near future. I didn't know it was going to be this near. They preparing for him to retire, So they like, okay, let's prepare for Frank to retire. Let's get these guys a year under his belt to be the center. And then now you like, damn, well, he got to, either Graham Glasgow got to move to center or they going to step this kid into center. And remember, Frank Ragnow didn't start at center. Let's talk about that. It wasn't with this regime, but he wasn't the center. Yeah, Frank Ragnow, he wasn't the center. I think people forget that. He wasn't the center. He wasn't. He started off at guard and they moved him to center. People forget that. So, give Brad Holmes some credit. We didn't understand why, but I also think the Manu Giovanni is going to move the tackle. I'm telling you, Taylor Decker ain't got too much longer to go neither. So what you're going to see is Sewell move to left, Giovanni Manu going to move to right tackle. That's why he's training with Decker in the offseason. Then you're going to have, eventually, Graham Glasgow going to move on. Miles Frazier, Corey Storsdale are going to battle for that right guard position. Your offensive line is probably going to look like from left to right, Panee, Mahogany, Rutledge, or Frazier. Then Frazier or Rutledge at guard. And and then you're going to have Manu Giovanni at tackle. Probably the next 2 or 3 seasons, that's what you're going to have. And what they done is they overturned the offensive line with minimum cost. This shit is fucking brilliant if it works. Because guess what? Mahogany 6th-round draft pick. You know what I'm saying? Frazier, 5th, 6th-round draft pick. Sorsdale was a late-round draft pick. Graham Glasgow's a middle guard. He's solid. Rutledge 2nd-round draft pick. So Giovanni 3rd, 4th, 5th-round draft. Efficient. Financially, honestly, this was fucking brilliant. Yeah, Seifert getting older than 2. Ragnow getting older than 2. Graham Glasgow still going, but he getting older than 2. Decker getting old. So guess what? They turned over the offensive line. They prepped for this. Like, Brad Holmes, got to give him credit. You got to give him credit. This was genius. He overturned the offensive line at minimum cost. And it wasn't about that we wasn't going to pay people. That's not what it was. Guys got old. Because they paid Decker. They paid Ragnow. You know what I'm saying? They paid these guys. These guys are getting old. Same thing they did with their coordinators. Think about the Lions, man. And it's yet to be seen if the coordinators work or not work. We'll see, right? they had the coordinators. They already had in mind the coordinators that they wanted. They already was ready to. They was already prepping them. Yeah, this might be a smart move back here today. It's about to be hot as 5 fat bitches in the fucking Prius. I really don't want to park next to this guy. He gonna be thinking I'm trying to steal his thunder and shit. But yeah, that is, with the coordinators, they was prepared to move on. And then if you want to take a step further, and I'm not saying this to be true or not to be true, but they drafted old buddy, Isaac Tesla. You want to know why they drafted Tesla? Y'all really want to know the truth on that one? And from my opinion, is that they knew Jameson Williams. We might not be able to keep him next year. We might have to tag him. We might have him for 3 more seasons. If we tag him, we don't really want to pay him that much money. But if we lose him, we got Tesla in the fold. And guess what? If Tim Patrick don't hit for nothing, if he got to move on, guess what? We can just put Tesla in the Tim Patrick role. So they are thinking ahead. They are thinking ahead. They're thinking ahead. They have some foresight. And when you got foresight, the thing about it is, I like to think I have pretty okay foresight. You can't see everything. I will say that. There's some things that I go through and I'm like, damn, you know what? I should have seen that coming. You know what I'm saying? And you live and you learn, but you always got to have foresight, especially as a man. I always tell guys on Free Game 89, the links in the description, sent out the link tree, I believe, too. On my channel, I always tell men you have to prepare your mind for the worst case scenario. I tell men all the time. A lot of guys get frustrated. I say, you got to prep your mind. Just give you a draft situation. You walk in your wife with another man, your girl, whoever it may be, whatever you went to, and you see that, mentally prepare yourself for that. So you practice in your mind, so if you see it, you won't crash out. And I always tell God, what you crashing out for? Even if it's your best friend in the bed with her, why throw your life away for and go to jail for what? For what? For what? They did you a favor. You seen who she was. Let's start the process. Let's rebuild the confidence. Let's rebuild the bag. Let's get to the gym, rebuild the body. And even if you don't trust another woman again, go out there and have it your way. Have 3 or 4 bitches in Thailand with you. But don't throw your life away. Don't throw your life away. Young man too, it ain't worth it, bro. You got so much life to live, bro. And to get a record or go through the stress of depleting your funds, you know what I'm saying? To me, it ain't worth it. And that's just my opinion on it. But I wouldn't trip. But yeah, man. Hopefully I enjoyed the video. But Brad Holmes cooking, man. Brad is cooking with olive oil. He cooking with Crisco grease. But hey, check out Detroit Lions Talk playlist. Thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the link tree, find me everywhere. Peace.